Well, it indeed has been some time, Rawcast listeners. I'm a few days behind schedule on getting the newest upload, and the reason is I apologize, but I actually already did record episode 20, and I wasn't happy with the results. See, I'm somebody that I struggle with anger, or at least I used to struggle with anger. Not saying that I got into domestic issues or anything like that, but the most prevalent emotion that bubbles to the surface with me is anger. And episode 20 focused on anger, but I was in the midst of the emotion. I was in the tempest. And so what it had come down to is, given how messed up this year has been, I was very much looking forward to going hunting, and I believe I talked about this in my 3B episode 15, Eggs Bloody Side Up. Sorry to plug both shows. When I'm on my 3B, I talk about Rawcast. When I'm on Rawcast, I talk about my 3B, but each of these shows is kind of an extension of different parts of my personality. And so I was very much looking forward to going hunting. The opening season was the third weekend of November, Saturday and Sunday. And so 3 months in advance, I put in my request for vacation to take Saturday. I work every Saturday. So I just wanted to take that one Saturday off so then I could hunt Saturday, Sunday. And that hunting is an opportunity for me to realign my chi, not necessarily realign my chakras, because how do you realign the chakra around your genitals when you're out in the woods? Just use your imagination. Probably not the most fun thing in the world. But COVID ruined that. Basically, a small group of people in a neighboring office who pride themselves on not wearing masks because, COVID's overblown, it's a hoax, blah, 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 happened to be out with COVID, so my coverage was pulled, and I had to work that Saturday. So episode 20 was actually just a large bitch fest, and that's not how I want to go about things. My Three Bitches is where I vent the frustrations, and this show is where it's a little more pensive, a little more thoughtful, a little more articulate in that the thoughts and feelings have already been analyzed prior to hitting record. Though that's not to say that sitting here and talking about things, I don't have self-discoveries, or even listening back to episodes, I go, I didn't think about it from this viewpoint, blah, 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 or basically it's letting me get some insight on myself. But essentially, I just pissed and moaned, bitched and screamed through the entirety of episode 20. And I let it sit for a few days and finally realized that's not how I wanted things to go. So, I mean, it's not to say that, anger, you shouldn't be ashamed that you feel anger. And even when you're in the midst of an extremely angry moment, you shouldn't feel bad that you're angry. Anger is one of the emotions. And there's nothing wrong with having emotions. Each emotion, extreme happiness, that can go to the point where you're riding so high that once the moment wears off, it's almost like coming down from a drug and can trigger a depressive episode. Can be just as bad, if not worse, than feeling anger. But, even for somebody like me, where I didn't necessarily have to go through anger management, I just had to really take the time to reflect and ruminate and allow myself to forgive myself for getting angry, and then learning how to have the patience to feel out that anger, but also process it in a healthy manner. And so again, I apologize for the 10 of you that end up listening to these so far, but I didn't feel that it was necessarily appropriate for this show for me to all of a sudden just be flying off the handle bitching about how I got screwed over. And I mean, this definitely could have been prevented by some middle-aged douchebags just putting on a mask, when they were sitting 5 feet from other people. But they didn't. And so I was not able to hunt the opening day, but I was able to process that anger. I was very much angry, but I repurposed that anger and put it into more positive, productive actions. So a lot of shit got done around the house, and I was then able to go hunting. And the biggest problem I had with it, it's not just like, it's not fair, I wanted that day off. I'm caught between the election, which really fucked with my job hardcore. I mean, every goddamn day was just a pedal to the metal roller coaster. And that's usually not the case, but you have that in election years. You see a small bump in the midterms, excuse me. But the presidential election, it was just nonstop. Definitely overworked and underpaid, but that's the nature of salary. And then, so hunting was the lull between the presidential election and Christmas. And those of you who should be aware, if you're not aware of this, you're a fucking moron and need to get a clue. But UPS, FedEx, Postal Service, Christmas season, we're getting destroyed. That's a given. But so hunting season for me, especially the opening weekend of gun season, that's the lead up to Thanksgiving, but it's the lull between the two cliff sides of suck. So I can walk out on that mental suspension bridge and be at peace. It's where I'm able to feel good about preparing all the gear that I need to go out to the tree stand. And then the day arrives, I drive out there, and I can already feel myself getting excited to some degree. It's not like, oh shit, we're going to Disney World. But it's definitely something to look forward to. And by the time I walk my ass out to the tree stand in the middle of the woods and sit down with my phone on silent, surrounded by nature, just hearing the animals start to stir early in the morning, hearing the rustle of leaves as the gentle breeze comes through. I'm in the middle of nature, and that is where I come very close to experiencing Satori, or sudden enlightenment. You just get to be here now, in the middle of nature, where everything feels at peace. And so it's very spiritual and psychologically beneficial for me to go hunting. And so, yes, episode 20 ended up being me just railing against the fact that I didn't get to go that Saturday. So once I got processed everything and got over acting like a kid who had his candy stolen, I dealt with it, put that anger to good use, still went hunting probably 2 or 3 days, did manage to get a deer, a nice 3-year-old doe, and unfortunately nobody was available to assist me in processing the deer. So I spent 6.5 to 7 hours on my own skinning, quartering, and processing the meat of this deer. Now, it definitely sucked to a certain degree, but once it was all said and done, I mean, my hands ached. My back was sore. I was really tired after the entire process was over. But once it was all said and done, I was able to go out to the garage where our upright freezer is, open the door, and see over 60 pounds of very healthy food. Some nice lean meat that I went out to the woods, harvested it myself, processed it myself. And now, if I'm having a bad day, I'm able to just open up that freezer and see all that meat that I provided for my family. And so I still managed to get my Zen time. Still got to do some healthy ruminating. I had a relatively successful hunt. I had a bug up my ass this time around because I wanted to tag out. The only thing better than 60 pounds of meat in the freezer is about 150 pounds of meat in the freezer, if not more. We'll say 180 pounds of meat. Because then I can guarantee that if shit hits the fan, at least my family's going to have meat. And it's something where, I would rather be over-prepared than under-prepared. And with the way some things have been going this year, it's not that I'm anxious about it, but it would just, the level of pride that I felt with one deer, I can only imagine what it would feel like after 3 deer, which I would be even more exhausted, but I would have to verbally beat some family and friends over the head to come help me process 2 more deer. But very happy that I got the 1 and I did all the work myself. So I'm not gonna sweat that I didn't make my goal of tagging out, which would have been another doe and a buck. It's slightly disappointing, but a W is a W. A success is a success, no matter how small. And I'm grateful for the opportunity that I was able to get out to the tree stand and find that Zen time. It felt like I did realign myself and put some things into perspective. So, let's be real, folks. Putting meat in the freezer, that was just the icing on the cake. It was the sitting in the woods that I needed more than anything. And now, thanks to my dad, I've got a crossbow. I haven't had a chance to go hunting with a bow since I was 16. So we're already talking half my life without bow hunting. And then a few years ago, I did get a muzzleloader for my dad as well as a Christmas gift. So the muzzleloader and the crossbow open up a few more months of possibility or opportunity for me to get out to the tree stand. I'm not the type of person to just... Where I hunt is about 45 minutes away from where I am right now. And I'm not the type of person to drive 45 minutes one way just to go sit in the woods quietly by myself. But I also have to recognize that time is going to continue on this linear progression regardless of where my head's at any given time. And it became evident to me this November that my grandparents, who own the land where I hunt, are only getting older. And it's getting harder and harder for them to maintain the property. And I'm nowhere close to being in a position to either A, purchase the hunting land from them so that I can preserve it for our future generations. Well, actually, I just covered A and B. I'm definitely not going to try to throw my hat in the ring and try to convince them to leave me the land or, try to keep the land in the family, because I know that my grandmother would like to downsize and eventually sell the property and move into a smaller home to make things easier so she can better enjoy the remaining years that she has. And in no way am I going, oh no, then we lose the hunting land. Because it's not my land. I've been privileged to have the opportunity, through their permission, to hunt their land for the last, God, I don't even know. I want to say at least 15 years or so. I think ever since I've had my driver's license. But so I'm not going to try to convince them to keep the hunting land in the family. What they choose to do with it is what they choose to do with it, because it is their property. Just because we are blood relatives doesn't mean that I have some sort of inherent right to it. I mean, when the time comes, yes, it'll still be kind of disappointing because I have no interest in hunting public land. The risk, basically the overall risks of hunting accidents are increased drastically on public land, in my opinion. I'm not going to back it up with stats. But so what I was saying is, let's go back and say option A would be try to convince them to keep the hunting land in the family, or option B would be me purchasing either that land or land of my own. And I'm just definitely not in a position financially to be able to purchase 40 acres of hunting land. So that tells me that instead of trying to sweat what is to come, with an open heart, I'm going to tell my grandparents, you guys do what you feel is best for you to enjoy your remaining years. And when the time comes, I will just have to figure out another option. And that's just the way things go. Nothing is permanent. All that's guaranteed in life is impermanence. And I'm not going to expect my grandparents to continue maintaining their property just so somebody like me can go hunting maybe 20 times a year. That would be almost selfish. Well, that would actually be selfish of me to do that. So, knowing that when I was out in the tree stand, that they're only getting older, that time is marching forward, and that nothing is permanent, it served as an extra reminder to really take in the bliss that I experienced sitting out in those woods. Because I never know when it will be my last time sitting out in those woods. So being present in the moment and taking in all that nature and the peace and the serenity of being out there made it extra special this time around. And as I said, getting that doe was just the icing on the cake. Because instead of walking out there with a clear mind, more pure emotions, and an overall better mental state, I brought home food. And so what started as episode 20 being just absolute anger, I wanted to rewrite episode 20 before I even foolishly put that episode up, and focus on the important things, that anger is not necessarily unhealthy. It is an emotion, just like happiness and sadness. Joys and frustrations, there are ups and downs. It all depends on what you choose to do with it. And so I'm focusing on saying that it is okay to be angry as long as you are able to process it. Don't try to just push your emotions deep down, because the negative emotions, when they're buried inside of you, are only going to fester and lead to psychological issues later on, depending on what's going on with it. You're not going to basically throw a Band-Aid on a wound that needs to be cleaned. And so I did. I allowed myself to feel the anger. I didn't go full Sith Lord on it, but I processed that anger. And it's okay to be angry. Just let it ride. Let it, feel it out, process it, and all things can be good. There's a song that I'm hooked on lately by Joe Wong called Dreams Wash Away. And the lyrics to it, I think, are phenomenal. That's what really gets me with this song, because it's a song that it's like a smaller version of what going out to the woods and sitting for 4 hours will do for me. In the lyrics of Joe Wong's Dreams Wash Away go, "You lose your mind, all things dissolve in time, the weight of will slowly diminishing, and fear subside, all things dissolve in time." And I'm just going to leave it at that. There's much more to the song, but, "And fear subside, all things dissolve in time." Yeah, you may be angry that you didn't get the day off today, but 2 days later, if you're still mad about that one thing, you didn't process the emotions and make peace with the situation. And so that's creating baggage. You're basically choosing to create that dead weight that you're going to carry with you, and it's going to weigh on you psychologically. And that's something I wasn't willing to do, because then it was just going to cloud everything when I finally did get out to the tree stand. And I'm glad I was able to do that. Basically, what I mean by that is I'm glad I was able to process the anger that I was feeling and put it to some good use, because it allowed me to get my hunting gear prepared much sooner. My oldest son, Odin, decided last minute that, the night before I finally got to go out hunting, that he wanted to go with. So I was able to get his gear all put together. And, I mean, the house it's the cleanest our house has been since we moved in back in April. And by processing that anger and then finding that peace and basically being enlightened through sitting in the woods and getting that deer. I mean, the week of Thanksgiving, I got to hunt 2 or 3 times. I got a deer, brought it home, organized the garage enough so that I could hang the deer up, let the blood drain, process the entire deer. Like I said, took about 7 hours. And then once that was taken care of, cleaned up the cutting boards, washed the table, cleaned up the garage from the little bit of a mess we made, and brought my vehicle back into the garage so I could change the brakes, change the oil, kick that back outside, completely reorganized my garage because it was almost a travesty. And now there's at least some cohesion, some semblance of sanity to how my garage is organized. Got the basement halfway organized, because every time we get it a little bit organized, our plans change and then things get cluster-fucked around. Was able to clean up the backyard, break the entire thing. Old furniture got chopped up and burned in our fire pit. All the sticks and branches picked up, cut down to size, and so we ended up having 2 all-day campfires. Got the gutters cleaned out, changed the oil on my wife's vehicle, made Thanksgiving dinner, and all the while with only having taken 2 days off of work during the week of Thanksgiving. So what started off as me being completely pissed off that after waiting 3 months from the time I submitted my vacation request to the day arriving and that being denied, I got a shitload of things done around the house that needed to get done. And so in the process, I went from being super angry to processing that anger and then channeling that anger into productive means, and then coming out a week later feeling 10 times better than I did leading into that day that got denied. And so it does all come down to knowing how to process your emotions in a healthy and productive manner. And so we are in power of tomorrow, depending on what we choose to do with the feelings of today. And I know I'm not the first person to say something like that. I'm just sharing my experience with how that week went. And it's now serving as like a monumental memory in the back of my mind as we get into the Christmas season and the supreme suck that is being a delivery driver this time of year in central Wisconsin. Satisfied, man. Satisfied. So there is still a great deal of things that need to get done. I would still like to get out hunting more. There's always things that you're going to want to do, things that you need to do. And as long as you are achieving your short-term goals, your tactical goals on a daily basis, you're chipping away. And it's not so much getting things done to have them done, but that's part of how you are actually going to bring meaning to your life. Is I don't care if it's the dishes. If you hand wash your dishes, getting those dishes done, it may be a very small chore, but you can take a little pride in saying you're one step closer to having your house spectacularly clean. I'm not sure I have much more to say on any of this. I just selfishly wanted to share with you how I went from angry to at peace with the world and with myself. And channeling that anger led to a very productive week that I'm extremely happy with. And it's a memory I hope to not lose. Because even our Thanksgiving dinner was pretty damn successful. Forgot to get the giblets out of the fucking turkey, but son of a bitch. My first time cooking a turkey. You win some, you learn some, folks. And that's all I've got for this edition of Rawcast AD. Sorry if you're an anti-hunter and you listen to this, but if you eat meat, your meat's got to come from somewhere. And for you vegetarian folks, the deer eat the vegetables that you eat, so I made sure to harvest one deer to save a little more food for you vegetarian types. But as we're getting into the winter and the doldrums approach, I hope that all of you are able to find a spiritual center to some degree, to at least be content and centered psychologically so that you're able to take on the colder months ahead. And peace be with you, folks. As silly as that sounds, heading towards this Christmas, I just hope that all of you, despite all the troubles in the world that are going on right now, find some semblance of peace for yourselves leading up through this holiday season. And with that, I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Take care, and science bless you, folks.